Welcome to I4CP Next Practices Weekly. We are your human capital research firm. We discover the people practices that drive high performance. We do this primarily through our major research studies. You see here what we mean by high performance, organizations that excel in these four sort of common business metrics: revenue growth, market share, profitability, and customer satisfaction. And in our studies, we tease out different HR, human capital practices that the sort of top quartile of high-performing companies are doing far more often and far better than lower-performing organizations. We're also a member-based community. You see here just a small sample of the organizations that make up that community. If you're with one of our member companies, great to have you with us. I know many folks that join these calls are members, but we also have many non-members that join the call. If that's you and would like to learn more about what membership entails, just reach out to really anyone at I4CP or visit our website at i4cp.com. You see the membership community is very broad, very diverse, lots of very large organizations like Amazon, General Mills, Microsoft, 3M, and many others. They also span across all different industry verticals: financial, retail, manufacturing, high tech, you name it. My name's Tom Stone. I'm a senior research analyst here at I4CP, and most Thursdays I have the pleasure of co-hosting this event, Next Practices Weekly. And this week I'm joined by Lena Perez, a membership director here at I4CP. Good morning, Lena.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you with us. You'll be leading the conversation with our special guest, who we'll bring on in just a few minutes. But until then, a couple of other quick announcements. We will be continuing with Next Practices Weekly in the new year. You see, we're working on the initial lineup for some January sessions. We won't meet on January 2nd, take that extra day off. We always take the last few weeks of December off, let ourselves recharge as we go into the new year. I know many of you are working on budgets and things for your departments, also taking some time off, I hope, as the year comes to a close. And we'll skip January 2nd as well, but you see, we'll be back with you January 9th, 16th, and 23rd. One thing to note, if you are regular at these sessions, maybe you've noticed it's not on your calendar for the new year. You need to take one action: either click a link over in the chat that Zeta has put there to register. You'll probably get an email that'll have a link as well if you've been already signed up for this year's series in 2024. You can also scan the QR code that's on the screen. All of that will work the same. You do need to re-register. What that'll do is get the event series put back on your calendar for 2025. The nice thing about that, since we do meet pretty much every week, barring holidays, you can come to the ones that make sense for your schedule, that work out for you, or where the topic is of particular interest. We also do record all of these Next Practice Weekly sessions. We've got an archive going back several years now. So if you're relatively new to this series, maybe didn't realize that, some of the topics we talk about are very timely, other ones quite evergreen. There might be some sessions from a year or even 2 years ago that you might want to go back and pick up and listen to. Couple of other quick things. This time of year, we always come out with our big priorities and predictions report. This is generated from interviews and a survey that we conduct with our executive level boards at I4CP. So think chief human resource officers, chief learning and talent officers, chief diversity officers, the heads of TA, total rewards, people analytics, future of work, etc. All of these high-level leaders that are members of the I4CP boards, they tell us what are they most working on, what are their biggest challenges going to be going into the new year, and what are their sort of predictions. Go out on a little bit of a limb for the new year. And we aggregate all of that together, summarize it, include a few quotes from some of those board members, and put out a pretty substantial report. This is something that we make publicly available. So unlike a lot of our major studies and reports that are for members only, every year at this time, this is publicly available. So you can download that, use the QR code that's on the screen or the link that's been put in the chat. We will be also having a webinar where our CEO, Kevin Oakes, and our Chief Research Officer, Kevin Martin, will be sharing some of the key findings from this report, going through the main predictions and the main priorities. So that'll be coming up on December 17th. Once again, link in the chat or the QR code on the screen to separately register for that public webinar. All right, with that, I'm going to turn things over to you, Lena, to facilitate the conversation with our special guest today.
Thank you, Tom. Again, it's such a great pleasure to be here. You know, great companies are built by great people. And today we have the privilege to dive into how Nordstrom, a company renowned for its exceptional customer experience, bring that same philosophy to its employees. And at the back end of that, Laura Jarrell, a dynamic HR leader whose career span industries from tech to retail, is here to tell us a little bit more about that. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So Laura, you know, we had the pleasure to talk a couple of times now, but why don't we share with the journey a little bit about your 20-year plus career, amazing career, and the different roles that you have had from banking to retail, of course, at Nordstrom's, and just walk us a little bit through the highlights and what drew you through Nordstrom.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you today and so fun to see where everyone's calling in from. I'm in Seattle, and that's where our headquarters are based. And it's actually not raining here today, which is nice. And we don't have any snow, Tom, so we're good there. But great to see all the different places represented here on the call. I grew up in South Carolina, so not Seattle. I'm not a Seattle native, and I ended up kind of getting the bug for HR via a summer internship that I did as an undergrad. I was at University of South Carolina, and I uh, got connected into this internship, and I created the onboarding program for this organization. And to date myself a little bit, it was in a 3-ring binder, just to give you a sense of how that went at the time. But I loved it. I loved the fact that I was able to intersect with people at one of the most exciting moments in the employee experience. So when you're starting that job, that day one energy and excitement, I was like, wow, this is cool. People are excited, they're ready. And so I ended up going back and talking to my career counselor and guidance counselor and pursued a degree in HR management. And then from there, I have worked across a variety of industries, as Lena mentioned, everything from environmental conservation, entertainment and media, investment banking, technology, and now in retail at Nordstrom. And, I've always been an HR business partner until the role that I'm in now. I joined Nordstrom in 2016, so I've been with the company almost 9 years. And I started as the HR business partner leader for the technology organization, having come from a decade at Microsoft. So that was kind of a nice segue. I knew the technology space, but didn't know the retail space as much. So I was able to sort of make that transition. And so in March of this year is when I landed in the role that I'm in now, which is leading several of our centers of excellence. And this is my first time doing that type of gig. So I'm learning a lot. It's a steep learning ramp, but it's been a really fun journey.
Thank you, Laura. It's fascinating to hear how your diverse experiences have shaped your approach to HR. So why don't we just dive a little bit more in your current role, and can you share specific areas of HR that you're responsible for?
Yeah, sure. So I have all of talent acquisition for Nordstrom, including everything from our high volume roles, such as sales associates, warehouse associates. I also have all of the hiring for our talent acquisition efforts and teams for our corporate roles. I have talent management, all of our talent practices. I have learning and development, talent operations, which is sort of the engine room, things like immigration support, contingent worker programs, and all of our background screening, all the engineering functions that go behind a great talent function. And then I also have culture and inclusion elements too. So that's kind of what sits in my world now.
Well, it sounds like a very busy world, but before we kind of dive in a little bit more into the HR strategy at Sherm and how you are able to successfully manage all different areas, I want to share a little story of my first impression at Nordstrom. And actually, I think it's kind of a funny story. Actually, the first time I came to the US many years ago, I attended one of my mom's Christmas party, and one of there was a dancing contest in salsa. And I won the contest and I won a Nordstrom gift card. So at that time, I was not too familiar with what Nordstrom was. And so I'm thinking before we move into the conversations and for those that are outside of the US and the global audience that we have, and maybe for those that are not too familiar with Nordstrom, why don't you share a little bit of background of Nordstrom with us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I actually brought a little video. Maybe we could start with that, Tom. And then on the other side of that, I can share a few more facts about Nordstrom.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me reshare because I think I forgot to include the share sound. So let me do that. And hopefully this will now work. It's a good video.
Was like, "Are you sure that's everything you got from the sale?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." And of course, 2 more boxes rolled up. But who's counting? Not me.
Just this bag from Nordstrom for several reasons, but the main reason being the return policy.
I actually felt included with the amount of diversity and different brands that they had.
It's really rewarding when you are working with somebody in the fitting room and you can just see how good they feel.
The passion that they have for making everybody feel good as they exit the Nordstrom doors is just so beautiful.
Thanks, Tom. And I think I have a couple of slides that maybe we could share as I give a little bit of a voiceover. You know, we've been in business for over 120 years. We're a company founded by the Nordstrom family, who are immigrants. The Nordstrom family is still very involved we're a public company, but they are our president and our CEO are Nordstrom brothers. And so they are very much still in the mix. And if you've ever worked for a family founded or family run company, you know that that can be a unique thing in and of itself. And we have 94 Nordstrom stores. So if you want to go to the next slide, Tom, we have 94 Nordstrom stores, and then we have 280 Nordstrom Rack stores. And that Nordstrom Rack number is a place where we plan to invest in pretty heavy growth over the coming years. So you'll see more and more Nordstrom Rack stores if all goes to plan. And we have about 55,000 employees. That number balloons up for our peak seasons. We have 2 of them, holiday, so we're in the thick of it right now. And then also our anniversary sale in the summer. And so those are kind of two places where we do a bunch of seasonal hiring to bring those numbers up to serve our customers in the way they need us to. If you go to the next slide, Tom, you know, our purpose is to make customers feel good and look their best. And we know when our customers feel good in particular, that they're going to talk about it. And it's the basis from which we can build relationships. And we are in a business of relationships and people, and we know that. So this is why we exist, and what our goal is, that each customer that enters our store has this type of experience. And then if you go to the next slide, you know, things have changed in retail. It's not enough to just be a great brick and mortar experience. You have to have a lot of different ways to serve your customers. Digitally, you have to have you know, a great experience there. You know, we call our .com stores our biggest storefront because they do as much business as sort of our top 40 stores. So that's a big business for us. But really where the magic happens for us is bringing those things together in unique and special ways. You know, I think ordering online and picking up on in the store, that's something a lot of retailers are now doing. But you know, that curbside service, there's just a lot of things in there. Some of the services we offer that translate between digital and physical have been something we've really focused on. And so we are really, you know, proud and excited of what we've accomplished, but we have a lot more to do. So that's a little bit about Nordstrom, Lena.
Thank you, Laura. That's so impressive. And I have to share again another personal touch of Nordstrom, and not because I'm only a fan of Nordstrom, but my mother-in-law used to work for many, many years at one of the feeding rooms at Nordstrom's, and I was talking to her last night about it and just sharing that I was going to interview. And after so many, she's no longer there, she's retired. She had only just great things about her experience as a employee at Nordstrom for the many years that she worked, helping people. So I think that culture, the people first culture that you have, and we'll see in the conversation, will last even after employees goes by. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing those stories. That's great.
So with about 550, and correct me if I'm wrong, of HR professionals supporting a workforce of close to 55,000 employees at Nordstrom, can you share a little bit how that structure is organized within in your dynamic business?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, we do have about 550 people on the HR team, and they're spread all over the U.S. We are a U.S. only company, so I see some Canadian colleagues on the call, and we were in Canada for a period of time, but we announced a couple of years ago that we would be, sort of dismantling that part of our business, so that we could fully focus in the U.S. And we have my role and the centers of excellence that I'm responsible for. I have a peer who kind of has the other half of all the centers of excellence. So you think about things like people analytics, total rewards, HR operations. So he has those functions. So there's two of us kind of in the COE space. And then we have 3 colleagues on the HR leadership team that are each business partners focused on different business units and who have teams embedded within those business units. We do have a sort of a shared service employee contact center function that was new for us through COVID. Frankly, we were already planning to move to that model, but of course, like many of us experienced through the pandemic, we accelerated a lot of things, and that was one of them. So we've been in that model for about, since 2020, essentially. And so, and we continually are refining kind of how we're thinking about that. But that's at a broad stroke level how we're organized, Lena.
Thank you, Laura. That is such a great insights, and I think people are getting to understand our Nordstrom's culture a little bit better. So as the SVP of Talent Learning and DEIB, you oversee critical disciplines. So what are some of the top priorities for you right now?
Yeah, and I'll share a little bit about what's kind of been a top priority for Nordstrom HR in total, and I can speak to which pieces my team and I are sort of right in the cockpit on. So a few. One is we have really started to put very intentional focus on the employee experience of our frontline employees. So, I think if you spread yourself too thin, you can sometimes not make meaningful progress. And so we have said, you know what, we're going to draw a line in the sand. And at least for now, our investment, we're going to make some trade-offs and heavily invest in our frontline employees, because we know those are the people who are most frequently interacting with our customers. And if they aren't having a great experience, it will show up in the customer experience. So, really thinking about the experience for our employees in the front line and the managers of those employees too. So we're doing some things there. I think investing heavily in technology and automation. We still, probably like many of you, we still have more manual stuff than we would like, and we got to get more efficient. And so thinking about things like shifting to the shared services model is a good example of that. We're investing in some of our workforce management tools that are long overdue. We invested last year. We implemented ServiceNow as a ticketing thing, but also we're using it in some other ways. And then we're also building our business case to do some deeper technology investments in the talent acquisition space. So that's been a real focus for us to lean into technology in a deeper way and make some investments there. a couple of other big focuses for us are really going to work on the skills of our frontline managers in particular. And we have a lot of newness in our manager ranks. And so how do we make sure that we have great solid skills in that role and with those folks so that they can create that great employee experience for those that they are leading and supporting. And then a couple other just quick things. One, we are, continuing to evolve our rewards and benefits. I think all of us in the HR profession are regularly looking at that. That's a very dynamic space. And so thinking about what that means for us in this space. And then lastly is, again, with that mindset of like really helping and thinking about our frontline employees, how do we create really great career pathways and bolster those to unlock opportunity for individuals? We have a really strong promote from within culture at Nordstrom, which has served us really well. But we recognize some of that may have happened a little more organically than it should have. So how do we be more intentional and thoughtful about creating some of those internal pipelines and really investing in our people to be able to take on some of those new and exciting opportunities? So those are a few things that we're not much, we don't have a lot going on, but a few things there.
Laura, if I could jump in real quick, a couple of things. I just want to remind everyone to please keep the chat open and use that to ask questions. There was one from our friend Russell that we'll get to in the conversation, I think, in just a little bit. Also wanted to note, you mentioned manager skill development. That is something that came through loud and clear in our priorities and predictions report that I mentioned earlier, something that many organizations are working on, needing to address manager effectiveness, skills, and also sort of the well-being. A lot's been thrown at managers in the past several years, so addressing that. And then I wanted to ask you one follow-up question, if I could. You mentioned ServiceNow, something that you've been implementing for a ticketing system, and you said other things, maybe workflows and things. People are always curious on these calls, and I know I am too. What are some of the other main platforms that you use in HR across the different COEs and so on?
Yeah, Workday is our HRIS, our capital system. So we are a Workday shop around here. That was as of probably 2017. And ServiceNow is big. So those are the two biggest ones I would say that we use. And right now we're in the throes of some additional potential technology investments. So we're in those discussions now.
Yeah, RFPs and so on.
Yeah, exactly. In the TA space, we do use, we've used HireVue a fair amount as a tool for us to screen candidates, and we use some of the scheduling capability there. So those are some of the biggies that we use.
Great. And then I'll surface one of the questions from the chat so far because it's a direct follow-up from what you just shared. Edie Goldberg asked, have you considered leveraging a talent marketplace, an internal talent marketplace, to help with both the skills development side, if it's connected to your L&D systems, and of course, employee career pathways?
Yeah, Edie, thank you for that question. That's our aspiration, is to have a more, again, a more structured way to do that. So that's on our roadmap. Because we also know, just as you think about trends happening in the space, that sort of project-based way of thinking about an organization and getting the best out of the talent, like to do that really well, you do need to have some great technology that supports more of a marketplace environment. Not only that, but we know, for example, in our supply chain warehouses, there is a real unlock there if we could enable better ways to support things like gig working and some of those models. So absolutely, it's something we are on the journey to get to in a more robust way.
Thank you, Laura. And as we continue our conversation, and I think this is not a secret for anybody, but I4CP is all about culture. So of course we need to talk and take a deep dive into this question. So culture is, as we say, in the cornerstone of any great organization. So can you just share a little bit more about the culture at Nordstrom and how that culture has evolved over time?
Yeah, thanks for advancing this slide, Tom. You know, our culture is deeply rooted in the values and beliefs that you see on this page. I would summarize some of the key points around service. We are of service to one another, to our customers, and quality is another aspect to this. And having that owner mindset, you can see owners at heart is one of the things we have noted here. And then really care for one another, that we extend ourselves is you know, that we are a business of people, and we you know, we should show kindness and caring in everything that we do, whether that's with our teammates and colleagues, or with our customers, or with our communities. And so that's a big cornerstone. You know, I joined Nordstrom, and a big reason I joined was because of what I experienced, frankly, as a customer. And then when I went through the interview process, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like, this is really different. It came through very clearly to me, and I felt like it was a really good fit for what I valued. Um, we articulated what you see on this page, the values and beliefs, in probably about 2017. We put them down on paper, but what's really nice is we were already operating this way. This was already part of our DNA. So we just put pen to paper on what we were already living and breathing. I think, you know, a lot of organizations draft their values potentially in a more aspirational way. And we were able to do the flip of that. We were already operating this way, and we were able to just like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. Let's put it that way, you know. So I think that's a really great position to start from when you're doing this. But we had some debate with our company leadership about, like, do we even need to write down value? Like, everybody's already doing it. Why do you need a piece of paper? I don't want it to look like a bunch of platitudes on a wall somewhere. I want it to mean something. And do we actually need to write these down? And, you know, in hindsight, it's funny, our leaders, and in particular people with the last name Nordstrom, have said they're really, really glad we did, because it helps you, one, quickly onboard individuals who are new. You have similar language to use. You can articulate. It also helps you get scale when you've got 55,000 people and you're trying to get them all sort of singing from the same song sheet. Having this type of artifact and way of talking about it has been extremely valuable.
The way you just described that, Laura, I think I can anticipate what your answer to this question will be. But if we look at the statement under our beliefs, we believe in creating a culture of inclusion, equity, and transparency that extends to our family, employees, partners, customers, and communities, because that is how trust is earned. And the way you just described, this was something you were already doing. You just needed to sort of put pen to paper and get it crystallized there. There was a question earlier in the chat that I said I would surface from Russell. How does Nordstrom navigate in a world that is moving away, some companies moving away from DE&I initiatives?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I will say we and I think this was even a topic that we had teed up for later, but let's just jump straight into it. We stay grounded in our values, and we have to stay focused on making sure that we are creating a great place to work and a great place to shop for everyone, because it is good for business. So, like, it's not just the right thing to do. It's like, when we think about serving our customers are a diverse set of people. And so we have to make sure we are reflecting back to them the products, services, you know, that they want to see. And so, you know, we continued to be committed to that. Now, like everyone else, I think, in our profession, we're monitoring and looking at what's happening. And you know, we'll have to make some decisions about, you know, what language are we using or not using, and what, you know, we were already in the middle, even kind of before some of the more recent media cycles, we were already in the middle of sort of doing a refresh of, what do we want our goals and ambitions to be in this space, and how do we want to think about it, talk about it. So that was already kind of, you should be doing that on a somewhat regular basis, like looking in a mirror and checking in with yourself. And we were already doing that, but our goal is really to make sure that we have a great place to work and shop for anyone who comes in. We want everyone to feel respected, included, a sense of belonging, and that will not change. So that's kind of where we're at, and how we talk about it with our employees too, and they really appreciate that. That said, I think it's always a fine balance. We are not an activist organization. We are not trying to solve the world's social issues. So there's always a balance between, I think your employees always, there's a gambit of people who really want you to take a stand in a big, bold way on certain issues, and people who don't, and everything in between. And I think we're always trying to walk the line between those things. And so, I think that's a tension that most of us hold in this space. So that's kind of where we're at on that topic. It's an active one right now, as we all know. So we're definitely in the mix on that.
Thank you, Laura, for that great insight. And as you said, it's a very critical topic for a lot of companies right now. And how is the best step to move forward is what we're trying to figure out together. But I'm sure that we will find the answer at some point and at the end of the tunnel, as we say. So as we continue with our conversation, I wanted to kind of deep dive a little bit on how does Nordstrom bring your culture to life? So if you can share a little bit about that and a little bit of the practices that highlight,
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, and we've got a couple slides here, so I'll speak to a few of them. Many of you there's a kind of a famous story out there about Nordstrom, and where a customer, and there is some truth to it. A customer, in our early days as a company, brought a tire in to return at a Nordstrom store. Well, of course, we don't sell tires, but we took it back. And what really happened is that the customer had bought the tire at that location when it was a tire store, but it had turned into a Nordstrom by the time they returned the tire. And so that was, that's a fun story, because I think it speaks to, when you're standing in front of a customer and they have a need, we want our people to use good judgment, of course, within reason, not go crazy, but to have freedom and flexibility to do what they need to do to delight that customer. And so, there's in the media, there for a long time was we don't really have an employee handbook. This is our one rule. Now, the reality is we do have some actual employee rules and policies and things, but the essence and the spirit of this is that we really empower our store employees in particular when working with customers to really get creative and think about how they can surprise and delight and meet their customers where they're at, or even surprise them. They didn't even know they wanted or needed something, and they were able to get there first. So that's one aspect that we really talk about. If you want to go to the next slide, I think I have a couple more that I can hit on. Open door. We are a big open door culture. And so, the way that looks for us, we have a few things that we do. We do the employee survey. I think most companies on here have an annual employee survey. We certainly do that. But I think I was really sort of surprised when I joined Nordstrom at the degree to which, when we say open door, we mean it. So all of our leaders are expected to respond to any employee inquiry or concern or request that they get, at least to acknowledge it. And that goes for Pete and Eric Nordstrom. They do that with customers and with employees. They respond to every single email and voicemail. And so we have that mechanism, and that's very clearly shared with our leaders and managers. We also have, just one big notable one that we do every year. We have something called State of the Company, where it's kind of like an all company meeting, but when you're in retail, you can't pull everyone off the sales floor and sort of bring them all to a big stadium and, do some of the things that some of these big companies, you got to run your business, they're serving customers. So what we do is we actually fly all of our corporate leaders out to our stores, our warehouses, and every single location. And we all sort of go and share a little bit of a company message of like, here's some things we've accomplished as a business, here's where we're going next. But the vast majority of those meetings are a big Q&A. Like we just take any and all questions, and we have a robust way to theme those up and make sure we have good response mechanisms as we hear more. So that's one example, but we have many more of those types of things that we do at every level. I mean, that's the big company-wide one, but we also have some very clear practices at an individual level that we expect our leaders and managers to do, and at a store level. So that's constantly happening. I think we have another one. You go to the next slide. This one is, I think, was one of the most interesting ones when I joined Nordstrom. This notion of servant leadership, I think everyone more or less understands it as a concept. At Nordstrom, we take this very seriously. Our customers are at the top of our organizational inverted pyramid here. And so we're very clear about that. And that's why, when we say we're prioritizing our sales and support people because they are the ones serving the customers, that's how we that mentality is, you can see it here on the page. So little cues of how we bring this to life. We literally draw org charts upside down at Nordstrom. So you will never see a traditional org chart on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. We use language that supports this. So for example, I have a team and I have direct reports. And the way I describe my role is I'll say, I support this team. I would never use the language, I manage this team. We don't use that language internally. So that's one. And also when people get promoted in the traditional sense, we actually say, oh, so-and-so moved down pyramid, which means they moved down that pyramid, not up. So we use very clear language internally that reinforces this. And I thought that was really cool and unique when I joined Nordstrom. We have a few other things, like we are big on recognition. We hold big, fun recognition meetings every quarter within each business unit. They are fun. They usually have themes. We make them really special. We do a lot of celebration of individuals. We also do a lot of things to make sure we're continuing to create connection and empathy between our corporate employees and our, store environments and warehouse environments. We do lots of travel into our stores and into our warehouses. You're expected to work in the stores through our peak seasons. If you're a corporate employee, you're expected to work a couple of shifts in the stores so you can help and also understand the ins and outs and take that back into your work. So there's a few other things that we do, but that's like, I just gave maybe a Cliff Notes version of some of the things that we do at Nordstrom to bring our culture to life.
Thank you, Laura. I love when you said, we're here to support our team rather to manage. That's definitely a lot of things that we don't hear normally. So that's one of the things that resonated not only with me, but I think it resonated with the audience as well. And as we think about empowering growth within your organization, performance management is a critical driver for growth. So how does Nordstrom approach align with the cultures and its value in this regard?
Yeah, I would say we focus, and I think a lot of organizations do this, and we are amongst that with, we focus not just on results, but we also focus on how someone got those results. So the behaviors that were exhibited, and were they in line with the competencies that we have in place? Were they in line with our values and beliefs? So that's equally part of the equation that we focus on. We really try to practice a lot of empathy along with accountability. And I will say that we've more recently had to focus on bringing back, I think, more accountability, because again, through COVID, I think it was a different market, it was different circumstances. So we sort of lightened up on some of it in a world where we were just trying to get people to come to work and get people to stay with us. You know, I think we let some of those disciplines atrophy a little bit, and we've really started to bring that back. We just have redesigned our kind of performance review process with much more of a focus on accountability and delivery against results. We still have some growth and development pieces in there, but it was for a while very much kind of a career development discussion versus but let's talk performance too. So we've swung that pendulum back to a more balanced place. And we're putting managers much more in the driver's seat on that, and just skilling them up and reminding them on how to do that if they haven't had to do it for a while. The other thing we've done recently is we had put performance management as a capability with our shared services function. And we recognized that we were missing some opportunities by doing that. So we recently put that back into the role of our HR business partners, because, you know, they're coaching and interacting with individuals in these scenarios all the time. So they're in a unique position to really understand what needs to happen in some of these cases. And that's felt really good for everyone involved. So that's another place where we've sort of made some tweaks lately. But yeah, that's a little bit about our performance management. We're on a journey though. We definitely continue to learn a lot in that space.
Okay, so before we move on to a couple of other topics that we had teed up, I have to note that the chat has been very active, more so than even most of our weeks. A lot of people really resonating with this inverted pyramid, with the practice of having corporate employees work during peak season in a couple shifts in the stores, and several of the practices you mentioned. But they've also had a lot of questions, so I need to surface some of these. So Amy asked, besides career pathing, what else, is there any other things you're doing to really address sort of engagement and particularly retention of employees?
Yeah, the two things that I would say, the career stuff is a big one for us. And we've heard that from our through our survey and our other open door mechanisms. So that's a big one that I think we're really focused on. And then the workforce, believe it or not, the workforce management one is a big one for us. Scheduling and great tools to see and manage your schedule, and having flexibility and control over some elements of your schedule. That's a big one for our folks. And so that investment in technology in that space is a big one for us too. And then the other thing we're really continuing to work on is like I said, we do a lot of listening, but we need to do a better job of communicating back. Here's what we heard and here's what we're doing about it, and regular progress reports. I think our employees have said, like, I don't know if anything's going to happen with what I'm telling you. Like, I believe you're empathetic.
Right.
I believe you're hearing me, but I don't know that anything's really going to change. And so like we've got to do a better job of communicating. Here's what we're doing. Does this hit the mark or not? How can we get you to partner with us to create solutions that are going to hit that mark? And so those are a few things around engagement that we're thinking about. And then the manager skills piece too, of course, is all boats rise when you have great leaders. And so that's one that we are laser focused on too.
Yeah, that not following up with action to any listening mechanism you have. I've always thought that's one of the top reasons for survey fatigue and just skepticism or cynicism in employees, if you don't actually follow up with action. Also, being an L&D background person myself, I wanted to surface Marcy's question. How do some of your L&D initiatives reinforce the values and the culture of the organization? Anything specific there you can think of from a learning perspective?
Well, I would say, the manager development. So we have two big things in L&D right now that we're focused on, that the learning team is helping us with. One is the manager development program that we're in the middle of designing right now. Culture is a big part of that. So that is featured prominently in that set of content, and how we'll bring that forward. The other one is our onboarding program. I think I saw a question there around
Yes.
onboarding, and I would say we do have onboarding, but we don't. For corporate, we have kind of a pretty standard thing. But I think we have a lot of opportunity there to get much more consistent, and to make it more of an experience than a one-time event, and so that's another place where I think our culture and getting someone quickly immersed. I mean, as we're opening more and more rack stores in new markets, we can't always promote from within for those locations. It depends on who's mobile, who's not, some of those things. And so sometimes you're hiring a store manager that hasn't worked for Nordstrom before. And so they're going to be leading a team at a Nordstrom rack, and they've got to quickly understand our culture, and so that's a new kind of business challenge for us to tackle together. And so this onboarding thing is a big one for us. We haven't been like the scale of growth and where we're growing, and hiring store managers from outside of the company is a brand new thing for us. We have almost exclusively hired from within for those jobs. So we've got some new things that are coming at us, and we're having to adapt and learn how to bring the culture to life quickly for our leaders joining the company in particular.
Great, thank you. Back over to you, Lena.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Laura. I want to be mindful of the time that we have left, and I think this is a lot of one of the questions. A couple of questions have come up on this topic. So beyond what we have already discussed today, Laura, what are some of the additional critical trends that you see in HR?
Yeah. And it's fun in this, I would say, in this role that I'm in now, I've had the great opportunity to do a lot more interacting externally. I would say as an HR business partner, I was maybe a little bit more internally focused, probably more than I should have been at times. So that's been a fun pivot for me personally. But some of the trends, of course, Gen AI, that's like everybody's talking about that. And we're looking at how that will best serve our company, our business, and our employee experience, and the HR function. Skilling, we've already been talking about it. Like these are buzzwords I think most HR practitioners are hearing and talking about right now. But shifting away from using purely degrees as a proxy, things like that. But how do you really use that as your currency when talking about talent? What does that look like? I think flexibility, we're all in this, like, some of us are returning to office, some of us are embracing full remote, some of us are in the hybrid thing. And I think, again, there's no going back from COVID and on some of these topics. Now that people have tasted what a full remote life could look like, I think there's new expectations of coming from employees on what they want and need. It's been interesting to watch, and it's been interesting to try to navigate how that all will play out. But I think the bottom line is there will be an element of flexibility that people will look for from their employer, whatever that may look like. That may be remote work, that may be something else, but I think that'll be an expectation. I do think an emphasis on org culture will be a differentiator for employers. It always has been, but I think it's becoming even more so and very amplified that people will look specifically for a culture that resonates for them. So I think that one becomes bigger. And then internal talent marketplaces, we talked about that earlier. That's a big one. I think we continue to see that type of thing evolving, focusing on how you can grow and develop folks through project-based work, stretch assignments, things like that, especially in a world where our turnovers come way down. I think that's true in a lot of places. So in a world where you're not seeing as much movement, how do you make sure you continue to challenge and grow your people in healthy ways? And I think there's some good unlocks there. So those are a few that I've seen emerging. And yeah, we're in many, I'm sure like many of you, we're trying to figure out how to navigate some of these things and learning a lot as we go.
Thank you, Laura. I think, you know, I want to kind of close the conversation a little bit on how do we drive positive impact? And I think we have a little video that you want to share with us. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at that video?
Yeah, anything you want to tee up first, Laura,
Yeah,
on this front?
I'll just say the video that we have now, this one, so our, I should have shared this at the beginning, but our vision in HR at Nordstrom, which I've always loved, is that we want to be as renowned for our people experience as we are for our customer experience. You know, one of the first things I hear when I tell friends and family that I work for Nordstrom is like, oh, wow, they have such great customer service. And that makes me so proud. And I want that same reputation and first response when it comes to being an employer. And our people, like every time I'm interacting with our people, it just becomes so evident that they are the special sauce. They are the thing that makes us unique and different. We, like I said at the beginning, we are a business of relationships. And so interestingly, we had not until very recently leveraged our own employees in our employer branding efforts. We had used more kind of slick, high fashion model kind of stuff. And we said, well, who better to tell the story of the employee experience than our own people? And so we last year, we started the journey of creating some great that we have a lot of materials here, but I thought I'd share just a snip of our own employees talking a little bit about their experience at Nordstrom.
Yeah, I know this is a good one. So let's take a look.
Ready to go?
I heard that there's some curveball questions.
What I like best about Nordstrom is
the people, the discount,
My team.
What company is going to give you benefits for your pet?
I have been working for Nordstrom for a little over 10 years.
18 years.
31 plus.
About 6 months now. 3 decades.
Wow.
I've stayed at Nordstrom because of the opportunities that we have.
I was able to move from Utah to Austin, Texas, to Dallas, Texas, to New York City, all with Nordstrom.
I've had a lot of support here in terms of career development.
I started as a cashier on the designer shoe floor. I now manage that shoe floor.
What I love about Nordstrom is all my leaders have been very supportive of me as a person as much as me as a professional.
I get to work with fantastic engineers.
Small Black and Latinx owned brands, sustainable brands, all of that is really important to me.
I love working at a fashion company.
I love the Shoes That Fit promotion. That one benefits schools in our community for kids in need.
The sassiness.
I'm the queen or king of sass.
Yes.
You can go either way.
You can just be yourself every day, all day.
The freedom to express yourself.
Have you ever rapped before?
Rap?
When I walk through the stores, I can see people excited about what we offer. I've got something to do with it.
I really would love to retire with Nordstrom.
When I get home, it's like, wow, I had fun today.
I can't imagine working anywhere else and having this much fun and laughing as hard as I do every single day.
It's great to work for Nordstrom. Love my customer.
Feel good doing what you love.
Feel good doing what you love.
Feel good doing what you love.
Is that cut?
Yeah.
What a great video, Laura. Thank you so much for bringing that vibe into us today. And is there anything you want to say about the video before I close? Or I was just so super inspired. It's so great.
Yeah, I've seen that video so many times, it always makes me smile. I know most of those individuals personally, and just seeing their personalities come through is great. But no, I just so appreciate you all having me. It's been really fun talking to you and spending time with you today. And I think my LinkedIn is being shared, and happy to connect with anyone on any questions or follow up. And if you haven't done your holiday shopping yet, I know a really good place where you can get it done. So got to put that plug in too. We have a lot of great stuff out there, and I hope everyone has a great holiday season.
Thank you so much for sharing such a great valuable insights today. It is clear that Nordstrom's strength lies in the people-first approach and unwavering commitment to equity and growth. So for the audience, let's just take this lesson forward, invest in people, and evolve with purpose, and always lead us with value. Thank you again, Laura. It's been such a great pleasure talking to you. And thank you, Tom, for having me here co-hosting with you, and everybody who listened today.
Yeah, so I'll just close things out. Thank you, Lena. Great job interviewing Laura today. Thank you, Laura. As Lena said, great insights shared. Super strong culture at Nordstrom. You're getting a lot of thank yous and kudos, particularly for that final video. I love the mention of just some authentic things, the employee discount, the pets policy. I love the t-shirt towards the end, the Nordy girl. Loved all of that. Couple of final reminders for everyone. We do also hold some sessions like this on different dates and different times. So we have for our global colleagues, both in the EMEA region or the APAC region, we have one coming up, the Future Ready Culture, Proven Traits of Agile, Engaged, and Prepared Workforces, coming up on December 13th. You see some of my colleagues there, Molly and John, that'll be hosting Didipia Ajith John as the special guest for that session. So if you live in the APAC region, this one might be a great one for you in terms of time of day. And also please share it with your global colleagues. Also want to note, we have a conference every year in March. This year it'll be the first week of March, a bit earlier than usual, so March 3rd through 6th. Hopefully that'll work for everyone's schedules. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is where around 500 to 600 HR leaders gather with a great lineup of speakers. You see just a small sampling of those here. We have CEOs, CHROs, leaders of talent, leaders of other functional areas of HR that'll be giving presentations. And uniquely in our industry, no vendors, no trade show, no expo hall. So it's just a gathering of, like I say, 500 to 600 HR leaders. You can learn more at our website, i4cp.com/conference, or use the QR code to get to that same information. And then lastly, all of our Next Practices weekly sessions each week are available for recertification credit hours with both HRCI and SHRM. So if that's relevant for you, just jot down the relevant program ID or activity ID that you see here on the screen and that Zeta has put over in the chat a couple of times. I want to thank everyone as we close out the year. As we said at the outset, we won't be having any other calls the rest of the month of December, and also not on January 2nd. Please re-register to get these on your calendar for 2025. We'll be back and running on January 9th, and I want to thank everyone. I want to thank all the guests throughout the year. I want to thank all of the co-hosts that have joined me, like Lena and many others. And I want to thank all of you as participants, members and non-members alike. You always bring such great energy and such great commentary and questions in the chat every week. It's been a great series, and we look forward to rejoining with you on January 9th. So once again, thanks, Laura. Thanks, Lena. Thanks, Zeta. Great session here today. And we'll be with you all again in about a month, January 9th. Bye-bye now.